Good morning, good afternoon, good evening,
and good night.
And good night. From wherever in the world you may be listening, welcome to Where's the Balance? This is a show, two average Joes, Canadians, sit down and talk about life and what's going on and our perspective of what's going on. Randall, what is this show really about?
It is not a debate, it's a discussion. It is a place to seek to understand, to be told we are right, wrong, or otherwise, because, we're just two average Joes who happen to call two different parts of Canada home.
Yeah.
And here we are, episode 9. I am one of hosts of Where's the Balance. I am Randall Keays. I am here with Rawle, my co-host, his co-host, however we want to look at this. And a special guest for this week, we're here with Trophy as well.
Yes, today we have the pleasure of welcoming Trophy Ewila from Kelowna, British Columbia, another person that lives in this glorious land. Trophy and I lived together for years in Kelowna. I've got, I would say, know Trophy very well, full disclosure. But I invited Trophy to come and sit in and chat with Randall and I and see where the conversation wind takes us, because we're just going to chat. I want to see what's on Trophy's mind and what he's thinking. We do live in some very interesting times, but yes, before we get into that, it has become a bit of a tradition where we do the news of the day, right? It's like we need a ticker tape sound, Randall, of this is the BBC. I remember when I was like, what?
I was going to say incoming telegram.
Incoming telegram. I remember when I was a kid watching TV back in New York back in the day, and Channel 7, always at 11 o'clock at night, would come on. As soon as the 11 o'clock ding, it'd be like, it's 11 o'clock. Do you know where your children are? This is Eyewitness News.
And now for the rest of the story.
Actually, I wrote a poem and I started the poem like that with that exact intro. But yes, welcome to Where's the Balance? What's in the news today? Today being Wednesday, October 5th, here in Toronto, Canada. Top stories from today, I'm sticking with the traditional news outlets. So CBC's top story today was Hockey Quebec cuts ties with Hockey Canada over the many allegations, sexual allegations, and they're not happy with how the officials have been handling it. So they've cut ties.
Which is interesting all on its own, considering that Hockey Canada belongs to Sport Canada, belongs to all of these to Sport Canada. Hold up, let's go back to you.
Yeah, well, I don't know. All I know, there has been a lot of sexual allegations coming out lately, and it's been always, it's not always, but it's been a lot in the past, and probably a lot that's not been reported that we don't know about.
Always.
So it's interesting that Hockey Quebec would lead that charge. Apparently, the little I did read, they're not the only association within Hockey Canada that's unhappy with the handling of these allegations. So be interesting to see where that one goes. CTV, Canadian businesses can now charge credit card fees. And what that really means is that merchants are charged for processing of credit cards and swiping, that sort of thing, but they weren't allowed to pass that on to the consumer. Now, there was a lawsuit that they won that now allows them to pass that charge on. So it's not like they're charging us enough as it is. They, they need to they can't absorb that anymore because obviously they're not making enough money. Yeah, okay. I'll let my facial expression just, yeah. Also from CTV, COVID cases expected to rise. Should we be masking again? So they're already planting the little seeds. Pot prices remain low. Ganja remains low despite inflation and competition. Interesting. So if we keep the pot low, we'll keep them high. We can do what the hell we want with them. Oops, did I say that out loud?
You might have.
I might have.
You might have just woke some people up there.
I think I just woke up in my head. The National Post MP Michelle Rumpel says enough with the woke shit in the House of Commons. And I watched the clip of her saying, as soon as she said, sorry, but I'm with her. Enough with the woke shit.
Right.
Global. There was a march actually just happened in Kelowna at the Kelowna Friendship Society march for sisters in spirit. I guess yesterday they're trying to push to become a Sisters in Spirit Day. Not forgetting the Indigenous women that have been murdered and gone missing, and a lot of times there doesn't seem to be anyone pursuing justice for them. So that was actually Global's top story. The Toronto Star, what does it say here? I can't even read my own writing. I didn't know this was a thing. Height surgery, booming trend, especially among men. Are you not happy with how tall you are?
Or how not tall you are?
Extension for a consultation.
Interesting.
Wait. And 15 years from now, we're going to have one of those Jim the Hammer Shapiro commercials that comes out that says, "Were you affected by?"
Yes.
How did this impact
you? Have been taken advantage by heightened surgery. There's a class action lawsuit going on right now.
Because I am Jim the Hammer Shapiro.
So, well, isn't that interesting? So now men are
Well, there's a whole, I mean, and that's this, whoa, I got lots to spit out here. There's a whole conversation in that, man, because I mean, we can discuss, okay, why exactly, you're pointing to your head, why, right? Irrelevant of the DNA structure you were given, and some of that is genetic, where you are from or where your ancestry is from, to what your height requirement is naturally, that you may want to be taller or you may want to be a little bit shorter. We're going to go with they probably want to be taller, but further into that makes me wonder and question where men are losing their confidence or their personal self-esteem and their personal worth, that to be 3, 4, 6 inches taller is going to be what changes. Wait. Unless we're talking sport and you want to be, 2 inches taller to get to the basketball net. I mean, no, that's not even cool. That's not even cool.
Like it's not just a sports thing. I mean,
well, no, I agree, but I went that pathway, right? Because that would give an advantage to a disadvantaged person.
Oh man, that's a whole can of Pandora's box. That's
well, and Pandora never did open a box.
But I agree. I think when I first saw that headline, I was thinking, is that a reflection of where men are today? What's going on with them? I mean,
can I just say that's a pretty shitty output?
Yeah. Well, men in plastic surgery is not a new thing. It's been predominantly a woman-driven industry, but men get work done on their face. They'll get implants on their calves or on their pectorals. Their chest. They want to have the nice perky boobs. Not like mine now. I have my man boobs. I need a man bra.
Oh, damn it. I had coffee in my mouth.
To steal a line from Kramer and Seinfeld. But no, I think there might be a deeper issue. And I kind of circled that because I want to go back and reread that article to see the perspective. Yeah, one of the things we do here at Trophy, we don't really go dive into the articles.
Right.
We just want to see what the headlines are.
Yeah.
How they position it. Sometimes we try to play Kreskin and act like we have superpower.
It's true.
What's the word I'm looking for? Clairvoyance, where we can anticipate. But I don't know. I think you're right. I think your assessment on that. I think there's a deeper issue, and that could be said for everyone that's living right now. But I think men for the last 20 years have really felt under attack. Manhood is not valued overall. Because of the Me Too movement, where and this version of women's lib. Today's women's lib is not the old school women's lib, and today, for me, today's women's libers. So, kind of, just umbrelling that term, has become very hateful and vindictive towards men. Right.
And men are lost in the mix and don't, I mean, if you
men
fight
are
back,
lost in
you
the
are,
mix.
oh my God, you can't fight back against this, but nobody's ever said you had to fight it, but don't lose who you are in the mix. Right.
Well, it's hard. It's like being a parent. You may tell your children something different in your four walls, but then they have to go out into society, and then your voice is just one voice that they've been bombarded by all these different voices, and then everyone's still trying to keep up with the Joneses to some degree. So, I can see that struggle, and if you're not really good with yourself inside, you're going to be susceptible to that. And a lot of men, for whatever reason, and I don't know, we can actually put our finger on it and say, well, it's just because so many men have been raised by women now. To me, that's too simplistic. Because, I know fathers that raise daughters without a mom, and they raise good young women and vice versa. So to me, that argument is a little too simplistic, but I think there's reasons we need to look into, and maybe there's studies on it, but I've seen it where a lot of women feel that they don't need a man at all. Even when it comes to children, they can do it themselves, and that's been a messaging that's been going on for decades now. My belief is, particularly in the Black families, the father has been replaced by government. That's one of the major problems in the Black communities, is that government has replaced fathers. Right. So I think, men, and also when, I listen to some women that either they put on the man suit to walk around and see what it's like to be a man, or people that have transgendered, that have, transitioned to be a trans man. And then some of them are realizing, oh, men don't have it easy. Maybe we just make it look good. Right. But they don't have it easy. But then, women don't either. Right. We just have different challenges. And, this is why we were made differently. And I think we've gotten to the point now we don't want to value our differences, and somehow differences mean we're not equal. No, we are equal. We're just built differently. There's a reason why we're physically built different. So I just think it's interesting. So what are your thoughts? Before I bring him in, let me introduce, I said it again, this is Trophy. Trophy is a young man that I have a great deal of respect for. Trophy is the other half of Kinfolk Nation, which is a artistic group. He and his wife Dia and their best friend Randy form up Kinfolk. But Randy, I think, is off trying to become a comedian icon. So, he kind of flies in and out whenever he's around to do stuff with them. So it's mostly Dia and Trophy. I met Trophy when Trophy was a student at the University of British Columbia, Okanagan campus. And I think I met him when he was running to become the student union president, and which he was successful in securing. In following the times, he was the first Black president of the student union. All I care about is, did you do a good enough job, and did you use my services? No nepotism whatsoever. But because of full disclosure, but because of that, I got to meet this young man and got to know him and gained a lot of respect for him, the way he conducts himself. But more importantly, when he speaks, he's one of these people that when he speaks, people want to listen. He tends to carry that kind of gravity with his weight. He's very thoughtful in how he speaks. Trophy and I speak about many things, and then every blue moon we get into these big debates. I say spirited, never mean or angry, spirited, where we allow ourselves through debate to try to prove you're wrong, no, you're wrong. But it's never in a mean-spirited way, because if anything, for me, it really gets me to understand his viewpoint in a different way, and to see that passion that he has. So that's one of the reasons I wanted him to come on this show. Randall and I had agreed that we want to definitely have more guests on our show. So anyway, where's the balance, family? Trophy Ewila. So Trophy.
Yes.
How are you today?
I'm good. I'm actually good. It was a interesting night last night leading up to this. I was literally just thinking about like so many different things. The question, where's the balance? Where's the balance? Like literally just the real prince, like the question of where's the balance? And also then the question went to balance to what? And I said, you know what? Let's go figure out where the balance is.
Yeah,
Really late.
yeah.
But let me start this way. I like the news stories that have been played because to me, journalists, and this is just an opinion, but journalists are artists or writers, storytellers that are trying to capture the times, trying to capture the truth, um, and put the truth out there. But something I'm learning now is that a story that's mass broadcast is not more valuable than the other stories that are not broadcast into the public space. But those stories are still happening in the public space. It's just artists doing their thing, right? Artists who have different opinions. I feel like, yes, you can have journalistic morals and all these things, but at the end of the day, we are humans and we kind of start from a subjective position, whether we like it or not. Even if there's an objective truth, we have a subjective opposition to that objective truth. Even academia, they might get all the data, but when they look at it, how you use that data, how you understand and interpret that data is still from a subjective position. So personally, I think like that's something that needs to really be acknowledged as a reality. That objectivity is there, whether you can't take away from it. It's there. It's already a given. But subjectivity is a position that we have to also, appreciate more to allow us share perspectives.
Yep.
So to me, every day we say it's a theater of the day. What character shall you play? Each day brings its a new day is a new theater space in which humans do the dance.
Yep.
And there are those who document the dance. And sometimes our fears is to be on the bad side of the story, on the bad side of legacy, the bad side, whatever that really means. And it's just our times. For me, I'm just taking stock that this is our time right now. So what are we going to do with these times? At least in my age group, we are coming closer, like I'm coming closer to 30. So certain things are starting to be more clear. And especially now I'm realizing, it's just humans in many positions trying to figure out what to do. So sometimes a company may say, we're going to do this. It's a strategic plan, da, 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 da. And you have the whole thing. And then when you kick off, the way the society responds is something else. And then now you have to dance within all of that to keep the company afloat, second round of funding, et cetera, da, da, da. But what keeps the company what it is the story. So the artists, marketing, branding, come up and draw pictures, make videos, tell different stories to keep the company afloat. But on the outside is what we go for. So you go to Apple, you're like, wow, I love this machine. It's this, the ecosystem, et cetera, but in the back, there's so much that's at play that we have no idea. Right now, and right now, somewhere in one of the biggest companies could be a real chaos. But if the story doesn't come out, we never know. And as the audience, we still get to allow the story play out the way it's supposed to be until a new story comes out and there's a fight to control the story, but it is what it is. And so I don't know where humanity is. I don't know where we are, but we are here, we are living, and it is what it is. I think that's the hard part to accept, right?
I think our humanity, and I like what you just said, because I think our humanity now is caught up in the subjective and forgetting about the objective. And even within the objective, there's subjective, because one of the reasons I like facts and data is not that facts and data are the absolute truth. Facts and data gives us a place to start. Because if it's only subjective, then to me, it just comes down to who shouts the loudest.
Right.
So I think you have to have, some consistency in regards to what you're looking at, especially if you're trying to improve things, if you're trying to change things. And this is where I see us lost. We're kind of caught up now in the subjective and not wanting to recognize that there's a value to the objective. To me, one of the reasons we started doing the news headlines, because I have concerns around the fifth estate, the news agency. To me, my understanding of why news started was to keep governments in check. Number one, to keep governments in check, to hold them accountable and to be transparent. And then their job was to then report the news to keep the citizenship informed, informed on truth based on their observation. And that ship sailed a long time ago, because I don't know how much truth we actually get anymore from the media. Not saying we don't get any, but sometimes I wonder, is their stories more subjective versus objective? Because your job is not to infuse a bias or a viewpoint, but to report the news as is. I don't know if that is something that we used to practice and it's kind of waned away over the last few decades, or it's always been that way. Because you know how we are, we tend to want to sometimes glorify the past and glorify the past. Oh, they used to do it right. Maybe they didn't, I don't know. And then we bring up people like Walter Cronkite and Barbara Frum and Knowlton Nash here in Canada, and all these so-called noted, respected anchor people, like somehow they understood what truth was when they're just reporting what researchers tell them. So I think, going back to our point, where's the balance? And there's a balance between the objective and subjective. For me, the objective is, there is no argument that the sun rises in the east and sets in the west. But we live in a time now where people are challenging that. Not necessarily that example. Yeah. Go ahead, Randall.
I want to touch on a really smart point that I think it definitely bears the need to repeat it. That Trophy, you and I'm going to summarize, and I mean, feel free to recorrect me, but your interpretation of media, marketing, that kind of thing, it's an art. It is a sharing of a story. It is storytelling. It is entertainment, whatever it might be. But it is an art form, and I really that is, I've never heard it worded that way before, perceived it that way myself, and I think it's a really interesting concept that I think maybe part of why we get so lost and so wrapped up in, if you read the same journalists' work, you're going to see similar patterns repeat, not unlike reading a Stephen King novel, or my mom's Danielle Steele novels all follow a similar pattern, all kind of have a same middle, start and finish, and the whole point of getting to those is the genre they stick in, and it's art. And then your statement just around that this is storytelling and this is a form of art, even within the marketing agencies, which will tell you it is all about the sales. They're going to build a story brand. Whoop, that's a book. It can be worth a read if you're interested, but building a story brand and who you are and what you are is the subjective information and some objective information, but the way it's perceived and the way it is sent out into the world and how it's carried across different media outlets is an incredible art form that marketing agencies and marketing directors and individuals that just do marketing on their own, is that they're telling a story, and it's the story they want you to hear about whoever it is that they're talking about. And journalism is no different from that. And it just, that has really stuck with me out of the last 5 minutes. That has been echoing in my head, is it's not a way I looked at journalism or marketing or whatever. And I mean, I understand the purpose of the story and of the brand and how we're going to communicate information, but how competition, how are we going to one up? How are we going to encourage more donors? How are we going to do other things? We tell a damn good story. And how do you tell that story?
That's what has been sticking with me, because even in our day, the future is an imagination, a story we are trying to play out in our present, right? So I don't know why that's stuck with me, even the objective and the subjective. I feel like, okay, yes, there are two different concepts that can be broken apart, but in the reality, they live together, right? Because the body, the earth, the other people, even in this room, there's an objective reality and subjective positions. Of course, yes, you can separate and pick one and the other.
Of course.
Yeah, but and even further for me, there's this idea that propaganda is a bad thing, and yet it's just stories packaged to achieve a particular outcome. Of course, it can lead to trouble, but at the same time, I guess it can also lead to something positive. But in that light, like based off what Rawle was saying, I think that the beauty of these times is that everything needs to be questioned again, because there has been, because of culture, some things have become so cultural that we don't question, we don't go through them, we don't review. So because our parents did it and our grandparents did something, then it seems like it's the right thing to do. Oh, I'm supposed to worship this same God because this is what my parents told me, and look at how far it got me. But to come back and literally review, even the transgender movement, I looked at it for what it has, if I may use the word, disturbed. We are looking at gender again. Even scientists are now looking at gender again. Of course, look, I know male, female, but also sometimes I'm like, is that also a culturally ingrained thing? That being said, I don't understand that happening is doing to all of us. It's really changing a conversation. And I think the big fight is that the exploration of that is that now if you meet someone who's transgender, you're scared to say something because you don't want to say the right or wrong. But I also think that's the case of us. We're trying to be perfect, which is, I guess I can understand why. Perfection, an obsession with perfection, to be at all times, to be put together at all times. And I don't know if that's real. Even the media, who have media freedom, who always advocate for media freedom, who are given media freedom, they're still not perfect.
Well, and I would support that nothing is perfect, because being perfect is being without flaw, which means we have achieved some form of enlightenment or ascension, or moved somewhere, beyond where we currently reside and where we are meant to be. And I believe that we are consistently works in progress, that perfection is truly unattainable in all aspects of what we do or how we live, right? There are going to be parts in that, of course, whether it's through work or through art or through whatever, where we've perfected something and now we want to evolve past it. We've accepted that the thing that we are exceptionally good at is without flaw, but if you're not pushing even past that to get to the next phase, are you truly perfect? Are you really looking to expand, or are you just healthy and happy right where you are and you have no desire to learn or to experience more things in life?
But you see, this is why I find we're too stuck in the subjective. Bring up the transgender issue. I can understand if there was obviously an issue with some that felt that they were in the wrong body, and people decided, you know what, we need to study this to really understand it. But it seems like this phenomenon, you use the word disturbance, is still new. It's within the last 15 to 10 years that this has really mushroomed the way it has. Now, gender dysphoria has been around forever. Like, in not the last show, probably 2 shows ago, Randall and I talked about it. There's a 100-year study that's been looking at this phenomenon for a while now, and they have found a consistency that, previous to 20 years ago, the majority of humans that were affected by the transgender or the gender dysphoria were usually young males, young teenage boys. Right now, there were percentages of young girls that happened as well. But over the last 20, 15 years, it has just mushroomed. And the interesting thing is that it moved from young boys to now it's predominantly found in young girls. When I say young girls, young girls, teenage girls. So the researchers, the scientists say, okay, well, that's an interesting phenomenon, that those things don't just happen. And if it does, want to understand it, and to see, well, okay, is this beyond something that we don't understand? So they started looking and trying to understand, well, is this happening with adult males and adult women? And they found it was not happening in adulthood, not at the same rate it is with young girls. So that, it's like, so what's going on? Because the gender dysphoria argument is that if they're not allowed to do this, there's going to be mass suicides and all this stuff. Well, if they were not allowed to do this, you would have suspected there would have been mass suicides before. And then the pushback, well, maybe it wasn't reported. Well, if it wasn't reported, then we wouldn't know. But we have enough data to say these are the reasons why suicides have been happening. I'm not talking recent, talking before. Now, as I said, the data is never perfect, but it gives us some place to start. So I'm wondering, is this disturbance, as the word you use, is it because of the subjective news? A lot of times we don't do research to really see what's factual. We just accept what things are said, and then we put it out in the news. And to me, that is not the function of the news. Right? The news, the media has been controlling a lot of the narrative in regards to what's going on today. That's really harming people that truly have gender dysphoria. Right? They're truly harming those that, because I do believe that there are certain people, very small percentage, that are born that feel they're not in the right body. I mean, I went through that early on in my life with my middle son, Zen. When Zen was just starting to get into school, he thought he might have been transgender. Now, I think that was, what society is from what they heard. And because Zen always wanted to dress like a girl, look like a girl, even do the removable markers as makeup and all that stuff. And I'm like, knock yourself out. Geez, when Harris was a young boy, he wanted to wear pink cowboy boots. That never threatened my manhood, and I really didn't care. Because I know children are open and they want to play with things, what they want to play with. And a lot of times the way they think is not the way we think. They don't see things the same way we do. We sexualize everything. They may be sexual beings, but they don't think of it the same way we do as adults. So, now Zen is a fully grown young man, and he may be gay, but he definitely doesn't identify that way anymore, or want to dress like a girl. And I always told him, I said, your sexuality is your business. Nothing to do with me. It's your business. My job is just to love you. Period. So my thing is, with this issue, because it's having such an adverse effects on young people, and I'm all for let's look at the conversation, but I have yet to come across any scientist that says X and Y chromosomes don't matter. But to me, that's not the point. It's not about getting into transgender. It's about this subjective versus objective. And I think we live in a society now where subjective is ruling, and there is no balance. And it's clouding conversations, and not even clouding, shutting conversations down. You can't even have conversations that are different, because if you don't, somehow your label is a phobia. And a phobia is really an irrational fear. Irrational. So to question, to me, that's not irrational. That is a rational attack, not attack, but that's an irrational attempt to try to understand. And when you do that today, you're ridiculed for it, because now it doesn't fit this subjective narrative. That's what I have a problem with. Right. I think there's a value to subjective. It's everything in balance. So one of the things that you said that I wanted to touch on, when you talk about storytelling in the news, and you see the news as storytellers. So then that says to me, then the majority of people embrace storytelling, except when it comes from artists themselves. But you made a very good point. Newscasters, journalists, they're artists because they're writers, right? Whether they're videographers or whatever, they're writers, and they're putting a creative form out to the public. So the public is already on board with storytellers from that aspect. From the business standpoint, marketing, I spent some time in the marketing, and it's all about storyboarding and telling stories so you can push product. So the public, again, is used to storytelling, except when it comes from what we consider traditional true artists like yourself, who tell stories but are constantly begging people for money because they don't see that correlation as the same. Right?
the value. But even stories, you see, the thing is, sometimes storytellers know what positions to pinch, so that they can spark a conversation,
Right.
no matter what. So when you're looking at politics is an emotionally, okay, in my opinion, politics is an emotionally charged thing, because you're dealing with, especially in a democracy. Democracy is the majority position. It's the public opinion that wins. It doesn't mean that the public opinion is always right, but it's the opinion of the public.
Yeah.
Now, if you're getting a whole number of people to choose something particular, there is the process of convincing people on why to choose something like that. And now it gets to the point where what happens is I now pick on the imperfection of another politician so that I position myself as perfect, etc., etc. So America is a good example, because it's, to me, one of the best TV shows is their election process. We all watch it. But what's interesting for me about the politics is, in society, there's the conversation about, oh, we need something new. We need new politicians. They're always the same. But to me, when I see the same group of people coming in, it tells me that the society, yes, in their mind, in the imagination, you hope for something new, but will you accept that newness when it comes to reality, what that newness looks like? So you get the Republican, Democratic, when Trump was president, for some reason, there was this idea that he was the craziest person or something. He was inept to some great degree. And somehow, somewhere, even though there was mass media against that, somehow, somewhere, the mass media worked in his favor to express what the majority were thinking. Right? To the point that I was surprised that he didn't win this last time, but that's just public, like my opinion.
We're not going to get into that.
Yeah. But then at the same time, he's insulted for being that. And then here comes this new president who, I don't know if the media is showing him seem to lose connection with himself. I don't know if that's true. I don't know if that's propaganda or whatever. But somehow, somewhere, to me, if they were to ask me to pick two people who I would want to sit down and plan something long-term with, I don't know if I would be with this current president, but it's the same storytellers from his group who used the demonization of the other one to come into play. But this game has been going on for so long. And then I ask myself, where's the space for the third alternative or the new alternative?
There isn't.
Right? And what does that look like? And I feel like it will come from, if it's to happen, it will come from the most unlikely space. And of course,
but we always assume, though, that the people know. There's an old saying that, the people always get the government they deserve.
Right.
They always get the government that they deserve. So if that's the case, both here in Canada and the US, then what does that say about the people? Because many people are not happy with the governments that we have right now.
So is this an element of the definition of insanity? We're continually doing the same thing over and over and over again and expecting different results, but not getting different results. So we continue to rinse and repeat the same thing we've been doing.
Because I think politicians play on the hope of people. Right?
Yes.
And I think there are some politicians that truly have they want to honor the intent that they put out, but then they walk into the machinery of governance, of politics, because the government now is a separate entity. Right? As opposed to, no, the government is comprised of Canadian citizens elected by Canadian citizens to represent Canadian citizens. It's not a separate entity.
Wait, did you just say Canadian first, board second?
Yes, I did.
That they have to play by and follow the same rules, limitations, and all other governing aspects of our life the same way we're supposed to?
Yes, I did. Oh. And the same in the States, and the same on any Western country. And I think what's going on today, going back to one of Trophy's points, is that maybe this younger generation, whether they are well informed or not, are saying, we don't necessarily want this madness that we're seeing. But I also think this younger generation has been spooned a bunch of nonsense that is not proven. And it's not even proven, not just in it's ever been done. It's not even proven in debate where we can debate and talk about these things, not holistically. Like I said, Trophy and I can get into spirited conversations, but I think we still listen to each other. And there's not a lot of that going on. And if you're not listening, how can you fully understand someone's viewpoint? Because I think it's not just about there's 72 different genders. I think this younger generation is saying a lot of our old ways don't apply anymore. Remember who raised Trophy? We did. Trophy represents the younger generation. We raised them. We raised them to be free thinking. We raised them to challenge the establishment. We raised them to say, don't just accept things because this is what has always been done. Did we not?
Yeah.
And then now that they push back, we find ways to want to demonize them, or we take that natural process of progression and now use it and have the marketing gurus spin it and pour it back down our throats as poison. Right? So now we're both in the same boat, because now you have a young generation that feels completely disenfranchised and not being fully heard. Right? You have the elder ones that have been spoon-fed basically two narratives that really don't encourage good conversation or encourage good governance. So now they've got everyone pitted against each other, while the ones that are controlling the narratives are making tons of money. Transgenderism is big money. Look at the money the medical industry is making off of this. Same with racism, big money. This is why they won't let shit go. So we end up fighting with each other. It's like, what are we really fighting about? As opposed to let's sit down and listen to what each side really has to say. So that's why I said, the people always get the government that deserves. So what does that say about the people? Because we live in a democracy. Is there another way to govern ourselves? Yeah, probably. We didn't always have democracy. People forget we come from anarchy and tyranny and kings and queens that weren't always very nice, and warlords. People forget where we come from. I think a lot of this younger generation thinks too that we all come from silver spoons in our mouths. No, we come from poverty. That's why poverty is still so rampant actually, it's not that rampant on this planet, although it's been going up over the last 5 years. We've gotten poverty down, when talking about the global population, down to about 10%. But you'd swear to God that 3/4 of the world is still starving. No, it's not. Doesn't mean there's a lot of people still aren't. Right? So I don't know. I just think that subjective is kind of out of balance now. Sorry, Randall. Yeah.
No, well, while we're on the topic and while we're talking politics, subjective, objective, church and state, all these fun things that live within that, question for the two of you, why do you think or feel, let's go with feel, so purposely asking baited statement here, or baited question, the federal government would actually have a say in what Hockey Canada is doing as a self-governed board representing hockey in Canada?
Well, I think they would feel they have a say if a percentage of their revenues are coming from the government. Right? Number one. Number two, the fact that it says Hockey Canada. I don't know. Maybe that's another reason. I don't know, to be honest.
Well, okay. So Hockey Canada, Canada Post, the Mint is just called the Mint, but we know that they make money for Canada and several other countries. But
it's a crown. Well, to me, they're all crown. They're all crown. Well, maybe they're not, but it's like the feds in the state, the Federal Reserve System. It says Federal Reserve.
Doesn't mean that it belongs to the feds.
Well, they don't.
Exactly.
Doesn't mean they don't. They're not a government agency at all. They're private bankers. They are not public officials at all.
Maybe you should repeat that for those that maybe didn't catch that.
Here in Canada, it's a little different with our Bank of Canada, but in the US, the Federal Reserve is not a government agency. It's a private bank. that talks and acts like it's connected to the government, because why? The government gets its money from the Fed. The
Amen.
government issues bonds, the Fed gives money, and this whole, it's a big Ponzi scheme of fiat, right? So that's what it is. And maybe, you know, like I said, I haven't looked into Hockey Canada's mandate, so I don't, but maybe that's why, to answer your question, because maybe there's still a lot of funding that comes from the federal government, so they feel that they have a say. The fact that it says Hockey Canada, and the fact, going back to Trophy's point, maybe because Hockey Canada and the government has always been in collusion or working together, there's a natural assumption that somehow the federal government's attached to it. And maybe it isn't. It's just that, it's just how we've always done it.
Because for me, I think also the connection with sports, if you want to sustain, I guess Canada is pretty good globally in hockey. So to sustain that, now the issue of justice comes in, right? In terms of what has happened. Then there's PR, the public relations, in regard to that. How is the government responding to the accusations? Because I guess the victims of whatever happened are from different provinces, so there's no one provincial jurisdiction that is looking at it. So that's why you see Quebec is probably saying, "Yo, they're asking for accountability." That's what I
yeah, and that's a good point. Like I said, I don't know what guidelines, what rules, what things that Hockey Canada outlines that the provinces or the other bodies, like, you know, Hockey Ontario, Hockey Saskatchewan, what they, you know, what falls under their jurisdiction or what's federal. I'm not sure, but you know, the fact is, and it's not just the government; it's the people of Canada. You know, look at hockey. Hockey is you know, what most people consider the lifeblood of Canada. When we talk about culture, hockey is part of that, but it's separate. Right? Sports is not part of culture in the sense of how artists think, and I think that's a dangerous thing, because when you talk to the average person about culture, at least the average Canadian, they will mention hockey. Same in America.
Yeah.
What's culture in America? Football.
Friday Night Lights.
Friday Night Lights. So, you know, even within arts and culture, there's a division.
Yeah.
Right? The two don't mix. When I was doing stuff for the city of Kelowna around Culture Days, I wanted to have a sports component that was part of Culture Days. Oh my gosh, the pushback that I got from that, particularly from the artists, because they don't see it as culture. I'm like, okay, you may not see it as culture, but the mass majority of people do. And this kind of goes back to what we're really talking about, because when you live in a society that's democratic, whether it's, you know, here in Canada, we have a parliamentary system. In the States, America is a republic, whatever the version of democracy is, the underlining rule is 51%. So that means you have 49%, potentially 49% that's never going to be happy with certain things that come down the pipeline. And until we come up with a better way to govern, that's always going to be the case.
Right.
And even if we come up with a perfect system, there's always going to be people not happy.
Yes.
And I think we have forgotten that, and we don't want to accept that. It seems like there was a time, even when we differed and 51% ruled, we seem to somehow still come together or live more harmoniously than we do today. Right? This is why, you know, we have young ones now convinced that democracy is bad, capitalism is bad. There's this big push now for socialism. And I keep telling them, you don't realize we're already living socialism. We're moving to fascism. Well, how do you mean we're living socialism? Our government now wants to control everything. They don't really understand what socialism really means. And then they'll go, well, you know, we haven't had a real good example on this planet about socialism. We've had many examples. It has never worked. Because when you want the government to control things, you're giving up your rights and your freedom. That's what socialism ultimately does. Socialism is saying, let the government control things. Communism says there's no private sector. It's all the state controlling everything, every aspect of your life, from what you do to where you go to what you eat. So I find it interesting that here we live in these democratic societies where these ideals have always been there. There was a big pushback in the 40s and 50s to fight communism. Go back even further in the 1910s, and so this has been, but it's been building steam. It's been building steam, and then you have politicians like Bernie Sanders that stand up talking about how socialism, we need to become social democrats, and he uses Scandinavia and Sweden and these places as examples, and then these places are going to stop saying that we're not socialists. They tried socialism, it didn't work for them. I was like, what the heck is going on? Right? And you came out of the university system just recently.
Right.
Is there a temperature on universities today, from what you understand?
Yeah.
To really engage in debate over ideas that may offend people?
At least I witnessed somewhere there were some key controversial issues that happened. So for example, there was an article written about something race related, and then from that article, it sparked a lot of response because some people put posters about it, and there was a public conversation that happened. I think at the university, there's a lot of how can I say, competing ideas, but it's upon the students to create the space where those competing ideas can be allowed to speak. So a heavy one, for example, that I can really use was abortion.
Right.
The people pushing for abortion came onto the campus, and there was the idea that the whole conversation around it happened anyway, because the university could not kick them out given that it's public land. The students and those who didn't agree with abortion, who are, I don't know if pro-choice, pro-life, came together. I don't know if it was a conversation, but there were two demonstrations happening side by side.
Right.
And I think that had been it happened for like 2 to 3 years. Every time that came back, there was, because the key conversation was, okay, you're coming with all these from the assumption, I don't know if that's true, but the assumption is it's coming from a Christian perspective on what is right and wrong, sin. And then the other position is like, there's context to this debate. There's deeper context to this debate. There's also who is speaking on this conversation. Are women allowed to talk and give their perspective on this position? It's their body. So the conversation happened. There was a wild conversation going on. There were students who didn't agree. There are those who agreed.
Right.
I don't think there was a conclusion, because it happened at least for 2 years or 3 years back to back. So yeah, to what I would say with the university right now is about those students who want to take initiative, and question things, ask questions, create spaces for debate. It's interest. Yeah, that's what I would say.
See, this is to me where the news can help us with the narrative, when they can. Right now, the positioning is that conservative voices are being drowned out on university campuses. So if you're pro-abortion, the pro-lifers feel that they're being drowned out on university campuses, and whatever the thing that we're fighting for. Since you brought up abortion, just using that. But I think this is where news agencies can really help with the narrative and start showing campuses that do encourage that healthy debate. Because university to me was always about that. That's a place where you can go and really practice free speech, and people invite different thoughts and different ideas and debate it out. Oxford and Cambridge, I think as Oxford still has their great debate society shows that I still watch every so often, where they debate different ideas. They even had one not too long ago on Black Lives Matter. I should send you that. It was really good. But it seems like right now the narratives that you can't go and have those conversations. You have people like Jordan Peterson who have left the University of Toronto because of that, where he doesn't feel that those types of the other side of the argument is not welcomed. If you don't fit into this box now, you're not allowed to speak. It seems like free speech now is not free anymore.
And it has a charge.
And it has a charge. Exactly. It has a charge. So to me, we're going on a very slippery slope if we can't talk. More importantly, if you can't be offended. That's what a lot of this is about. It isn't about free speech. Is as a member of society, are you willing to accept that you might be offended? Because, I don't know, Randall may say stuff that I don't like. So instead of going, Randall, I don't like that, let's talk it out, I'll be like, oh, you're hurting me, trigger warning. Like, what the fuck happened? Are we that soft that we can't talk about things that might offend us, that we can't hold multiple thoughts, that we, you know, I am pro-Black because, but I'm also pro-cop. Society tells me now you have to be one or the other. Why? That's an insult on my intelligence. I can hold multiple thoughts at the same time. I can hold multiple beliefs at the same time. Right? And it seems that you must pick a lane and stick in it. Right? So men have no say in the abortion conversation, really, but it's my sperm that impregnates.
Right.
So why don't I have a say? Why does Randall, a so-called white man, and when I do black and white, I don't mean race, just how we identify. Why does Randall, a white man, does not have a say in what goes on with Black? Why not? Because we're human. He lives on the same planet, lives in the same country I do. So it's now you have to, this is what I believe. Oh, and then God forbid you said anything that was different 10 years ago, 20 years ago. Now people are apologizing for things that they said years ago. That's a further insult on my intelligence or further insult on my humanity. It said, I am not allowed to evolve. Right? So it's just, I find it very interesting where we are today. You know, this is why I really value our conversations when we choose to, you know, Trophy and I, like I said, we talk a lot. But there's times we take the gloves off and go, okay, for whatever is going on in our lives, we always know it, we feel it. Let's just go at it.
Right.
But we do it in a respectful way. It's spirited. But I don't think we ever sit there and go, you're wrong, and or make the other one feel like somehow belittled because you think differently. That it's like, man, what happened to, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe we never really did that. Again, maybe I'm glorifying the past. You know what I mean? Yeah.
I think for me, that if I may add, I think that's what I'm feeling. It's like it's been the same thing, just different now. A lot of changes make the world is different from where it was. Yesterday there was a clip of the lady who she was an indigenous lady. She went and represented Marlon Brando, and at that time everyone heckled her for what she was saying, but it was Marlon Brando who, that was his choice. That was his choice of doing, and she was heckled at that time. At this time, it's not something that can happen because also society, and because of a lot of resistance, are now accepting the humanity of everybody now, you know what I mean? So that's the transition that's taking place, because there wasn't a point where it said, boom, now we have arrived. And that's something that I've really been thinking a lot about lately. There is no point of arrival at life. There's no point where you get because they told us, go to school, get the job. And I'm talking from an African perspective, get the job. And because for us, we come from a society where there's not as much of the US dollar is hard to come by, if I may put it that way. So economically, there's so much going on that pushes people in a particular, get your job and finally it's over.
Tell people a little bit where you're from.
So I'm from Uganda, in East Africa. And a bit of the history is my parents came from war times where there was transitions, different groups, some not agreeing, but also there's a lot of international influence because it was an open space. culturally, different groups have been put into one border. They are still negotiating that. A country like our country is about 60 years. It's going to celebrate 60 years on October 9th. When you look at a company like IBM, it's been there for 100 years. Or Canada, the state has been there for 150 years. So you're living in a context where there's multiple languages, but somehow there's a collective demand for the US dollar. What I mean is you're pushed to engage in the global economy, not by your personal will, but also because the external forces. So there's also personal will now. Like, I'm not trying to be broke, but there's a personal will. But in that same thing, there's still ideological disagreements, disadvantage. But at the same time, there is an interesting unity that's also present because everyone knows. So I'll give you a story that's happening right now. About a year ago, or 2 years ago, I was talking about, we're having an environmental discussion, and really, we all want a good environment for human existence. But I was having this conversation and I asked them, I said, so what is the place for Africa in this conversation? Because we've just come from saying, okay, we are going to be independent to do what we want to do. There was an idea that, you're less, you're not superior, There was a direction they told us to. This is the nation state. This is how a nation state is run. This is how the goal is. So industrialize was the statement, industrialize. Now we are industrializing. There's a pipeline that's happening. And interesting, at that time, I was like, so what happens for our economy? Because now we are trying to industrialize, because the idea is that when you industrialize, that's what makes a good economy. So what are we going to do about the environment? Because right now I'm not in a position to, we are not in a position to really to survive, to eat. We're trying to sort out the pocket first. Secondly, we have less emissions basically by the bare fact that there's still a lot of land that has not been transformed into industry. And when I mean industry that causes pollution. There's still a lot of forest cover, but for these things to happen, this is what's going to happen. So anyway, that was the conversation. I left it there. And now the EU Parliament passed, there was an agreement with 2 companies to build a pipeline. And these companies came and convinced the president to build the pipeline. His idea was that, no, let's build a refinery, but they built the pipeline. And now the EU Parliament was like, we want to pull out of the project because of environmental reasons after so much investment has happened. And so this is the dilemma that we live in. This real dilemma is like, okay, so where do we go from here? Because when I listened before, it wasn't in my favor. Now, when I'm trying to actually follow the thing that was said to be done right, there's this whole new story. Another deeper thing is Christianity or religion. It put a moral standing on society, on what is right and what's wrong. And some of the practices, for example, like, let me use the context of like, LGBTQ. In the society, that dynamic was treated differently because of the value that was there, maybe spiritually, ceremonially, etc., etc. And now there's the Christian dogma that comes in and says, this is sin, this is right. Not even just on that. It's like, okay, these are things that should be bad. And you're taught that in school. You've changed your language. Now, finally, there's a number of people who are able to understand the global context because of language. But there's this clash that's happening because how am I going to eat when you're telling me to stop this because of the environment? I don't have the money to even invest in research on best practice. You know what I mean? Yeah.
I hear it, and that it again, it keeps ringing in my ear. Are both sides, if you want to use sides, are they really getting all the intel?
Right.
Are they really getting all the intel to make a formative choice? Because America, Canada, these countries that are now developed, today they want to act like they have not done shit. Right? They've meddled in many places that they shouldn't meddle. Well, I shouldn't say they shouldn't have. They meddle because they think they're looking and protecting our so-called Canadian interests. What they're really just trying to do is to maintain their power and control. Right?
Yeah.
This is what this has been common throughout history.
Yes.
And
Yeah.
it will be, as we move forward, it's not going to change
Mm.
until our humanity and our mindset changes.
Yeah.
So there's that aspect. But the aspect of climate change,
Mm-hmm.
I think we're being sold a bunch of nonsense. Green cannot sustain this planet right now.
Mm-hmm.
So instead of talking about getting rid of fossil fuels, is how are we using it? And how are we sharing? And are we helping these countries that want to develop, truly develop, and manage their own resources as opposed to going in and trying to steal their resources?
Mm-hmm.
Because when countries are self-sufficient and their people feel that they can take care of themselves, they will care more about the environment.
Mm-hmm.
So the
Yes.
answer to global warming
Mm-hmm.
and climate change is to uplift people, not to squash them down.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why I always tell people, you got to watch who's telling you not to build pipelines, because
Mm-hmm.
pipelines aren't the problem. Now, here in Canada, we have pipelines sending our damn oil to be refined elsewhere, and then we're bringing it back or we're buying it back. We're just stupid.
Which is a terrible economic practice.
Yeah, it's a completely stupid.
Additionally, a terrible environmental practice,
Yes.
as we are already pulling it out. Step 1. Step 2, we are now transporting said good product to go get better. Right. So I mean, it is part of the gross products. It is part of what we have.
More carbon emission.
Air quotes, y'all can't see if you're listening in. So if we have a product that we can pull out of the ground here, and we do have refineries in Canada. We have a refinery in Regina, which is south of Saskatoon. We have a refinery in Lloydminster. We also have an upgrader in Lloydminster, both owned by a company. Oh, well, I mean, I think it's changed hands a few times. It doesn't matter. We have the ability to refine our own product. So environmentally, we made some decision some years ago. I'm going to peg that somewhere early 60s to ship a product that we have the ability for overseas to buy it back. So we ship it. Mm-hmm. We pay for it to get there. So economic impact number 1, we've pulled it out of the ground. Economic impact number 2, we've now shipped it. Economic impact number 3, we've now purchased a refined product. So they've taken a whole or organic thing and made it something more useful for its purpose. And 4th economic impact, they shipped it back to us for us to use. And so we have 4 major chains of economic impact. Through all of that, we could remove 2 and reduce environmental impact by almost 100% just by being able to use it here. Number 1 key factor in economics: who's going to do it cheaper and who's going to give you the product you're looking for the base value you want to pay. Oh, wait, we have carbon tax, we have emission tax, we have GSTs, and we have all other things that are built into that price. So can I say it today, in Saskatchewan, in Saskatoon, where I am in the last 4 weeks, price per liter has driven up 40 cents. 40 cents in 4 weeks. Why? Well, let's not even talk about global impact and global demand right now, because we don't even know how that is affecting our product, because our product is being shipped overseas. We don't even know what's happening on the other side, where we have the ability. And if you're in Saskatchewan, it doesn't really matter where you get your fuel from. I mean, a little different East Coast and a little bit different further West Coast, but similar stories. If you purchase fuel in Saskatchewan, doesn't matter if it's a co-op, a Shell, a Petro, a whatever, it is all done in Regina. It is made by the co-op fuel manufacturing, or the fuel manufacturing division of the co-op, which is Western Canada, but very specifically, well, I mean, they're across Canada, but they are hardcore Westerners in this sense. And it doesn't matter. So it gets shipped from Regina to Edmonton Suncor for Petro to add in, Petrocan to do whatever they do, because Suncor owns Petrocan, right? We don't go to a Suncor pump, we go to a Petrocan pump. Anyway, they add their little additives and they put it all back in. However, we are paying top dollar for fuel that other countries don't have to. Why? Because we have moved the product more than once. You talked about marketing earlier, Trophy, and we talk about economic impact and environmental impact. The more times you have to move a product, the higher the cost is going to be, not just financially, environmentally.
And Uganda is going through that. Imagine if you were to hold on to your own fuel process your own fuel,
Right.
and sell it back to your people, or sell it to the world.
And I think what the government and what the world needs to stop and realize is that and I'm collectively now, globally speaking, we are all part of 7 billion. Your number one resource is the people you can put into play to access, refine, reuse, reduce, recycle, all these re's for resource is driven by your people. If you don't have people in the factory, you don't have people doing something else with it, right? So I mean, if you respect it enough that without the people you don't have the thing, then realize that the people are going to drive your thing. And if you can keep it in your own borders longer than outside of your borders, it's obviously the economic impact is going to be in your favor.
But
this is what Uganda is going through. I mean, you know, what the Americans did in Latin America and around the world, the Chinese is now doing in Africa in droves. Where they're offering these countries these monies, knowing they can't pay them back, and then they put in these austerity policies in place. Basically, oh, you can't pay back? Well, we're now going to take your oil. We're now going to take control of your public utilities. That's how you're going to pay it back. And once you get them in, they never leave. Right?
You were going to ask a question earlier, Trophy.
So, especially in terms of environment, energy, what do you all think is the future, and what would you recommend on how to move and change the dynamic? Because the idea is about, I don't know, climate change, global warming, the effect on water. At least, if I don't know about like the air, but at least there are cases where water is being affected. What's your recommendation? What's your idea on what's the best way to move forward?
I think moving forward, a lot of it will be dependent on the technology and innovations that we come up with to help with our missions. I mean, I look at like a simple technology from in the 70s, like the catalytic converter that they placed on cars that had a dramatic effect on cleaning up the air in places like Los Angeles. So technology, but also
Can I add to that?
Yeah, go ahead.
Because you brought up Los Angeles, and I want to make a distinctive point on something I remember reading. I don't remember when it was, but if our asphalt was not the color black, it actually reduces how much heat it creates, therefore reduces the heat overall in major cities like LA, where they tested painting streets white. And only for the complete idea that white is and black is just in color spectrum, either all color or no color. That's what right?
Well, this is why
so if it can absorb everything but not give it all back, you can reduce the amount of heat, and therefore your draw on the system is reduced. And yes, so I'm going to totally, your technology and your innovation, but that has to be driven by people, and there has to be an encouragement for people to do it.
But people are only going to do things when it incentivizes them.
Yes.
So I think, one of the keys to climate change and global warming is to incentivize businesses and competition to produce the technology and innovation. We will eventually get to green, but green is just another form of energy. They make it sound like it's this silver bullet that's going to save the planet. All we're doing is replacing oil with now chopping down trees to turn them into wood chips to fuel furnaces that can burn natural gas. Well, natural gas still comes from the ground.
And can I ask,
right? So whether
do y'all
it's
remember?
Sorry?
Do y'all remember we're going to be a paperless society?
Yeah. Well,
no more paper. No more paper. Paper is increased.
Yeah.
Deforestation worldwide has, especially with technology, we print more. I mean, every restaurant, every fuel tank, every store, everything. Do you need a copy of your receipt? Meanwhile, the printer is already spitting it out, even if you say no. Crumple, 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 off to the garbage. There is one store that I won't even use their name, but when I go to their till and it's specific for this, do you want to print, email, or both? And because I've done email once and it's associated to the type of payment cards I've used at said store, and it's regarding home renos and stuff and why I need to keep track of said things, I just select email, no print, no whatever. And when I actually have to file taxes and go through all of those numbers and stuff, I have email format. And guess what? They all turn into a PDF. Done and easy, right? But that is one company, one store that I shop in.
Yeah, this is why I'm thinking
all stores.
This is why I'm thinking of not when I release my poetry book, I'm not going to do a traditional print. It's just going to be an ebook. Right?
And that is something I think I need to get over, because I definitely read a real book differently than I read an ebook. And part of it is just the draw on the senses. And there's a real physiological response to flipping pages.
Yeah. But that's because that's how we were raised.
Absolutely. And that's why I'm challenging my own thought process on it, because it is something I'm going to need to adjust to. Reading an ebook on my device over lunch hour or whatever it is never had the same feel. But if I get to pick up a book, and here's the nostalgic component of it. I worked in a library and I grew up in a library worker's household, and we read and we whatever. The smell, the pipe tobacco, the spilled wine stain, the dust, the dirt, all of that smell, whether that person had a fireplace in there or wood burning fireplace in their house, all of that. And then more importantly, the pages that were rough cut and not the super pretty, nice, clean edged books, rough cut pages that leave that gritty edge feel to them were actually more of my favorite than less. So yes, I have a nostalgic component as well. It's just like staring at me, telling me this wonderful story.
We're starting to see how the generations start to rub, and not necessarily you're not from the old generation, but that generation still affects us.
Hey, I may not be from the old generation, but my birth year still begins with a 1.
Yeah, if that's going to help you sleep better tonight, knock yourself out. But you have generations now that they know nothing but technology.
Yeah.
Nothing.
Well, and and we do need to embrace some of that. But I mean, it doesn't mean that.
A book for them is like, what are you talking about? A book? A book for them is I'll go online. So this is why I think we have to adapt. We have to be willing to adapt.
I want to just touch real close, and we have talked about this on previous.
It's not that kind of show.
I just want to bring light to, and we know this, we've experienced this, history tells us of this over a series of wars around nations and the world. The moment you start to adjust and change and remove culture of people, the more you have control. And to go back to something Trophy said earlier, and you've said it as well, Rawle, writing is art. And if we start to adjust and change what art is and the access to art and how art is fed out into our niche markets, we start to change society. I'm not saying it's wrong. I'm just saying when we roll it out in an electronic format and we start to reduce the need for libraries, we start to change how we just have to be careful.
So here, well, okay. So hold on to that thought then.
I'm holding it as long as I can.
We started talking about, is ignorance bliss? How do you explain then, from what you just said, the Gutenberg press? Because before the Gutenberg press, we were in a state of ignorance. But that once the Gutenberg am I saying it right? Yeah. Anyway, once the press was invented, and now we could print and make books, look how the Renaissance and the Enlightenment period expanded. So
1440, also known as the printing revolution.
It was a huge, that's one of the biggest revolutions on this planet.
Absolutely.
Because it did take us out of the dark ages and brought us into the light. So
even if that meant that they were burning the books to keep the fire going, it still brought us some light.
Okay, that's another show.
We don't burn books here.
I think bottom line is, it's like anything, it's about balance, but we don't always tend to work with balance. Anytime we have something new, we just like go balls in it and we go crazy.
Or it's the total opposite, which we come back to the definition of insanity, of doing it over and over and over again and wanting different results, but not knowing where we should make the change, even though the change has presented itself to us. This is
why I don't know if our human nature will allow us to be balanced, because it's like when you get a good piece of cake, you eat one slice, I'm gonna have another slice. You know you shouldn't, but you're gonna have it anyway. The moment you thought you're halfway through that cake and go, oh man, this is so good, it's almost done. You right there, you made the decision, I'm gonna have another piece. So
I want to jump in on that statement alone, man.
Don't mess with my cake, John Alex.
Oh, I'm going to take your cake analogy and enhance it. If you were to eat that cake every day, yeah, I may have some questions for you. I mean, just because I may. However, if you're going to eat that one slab, wheel, round, log, whatever type of cake it is, dozen cupcakes, I don't give a shit.
Well, let's not talk too much about cake. You're making me hungry.
Damn it. It is your lunchtime, or well past. Anyway, if you're going to eat that cake, if you're going to eat the cake, there's a book. I'm coming to me. Something about have your cake and eat it too. If you're going to eat the cake, but you do it once or twice or 3 times in a year, and that's it, and you cut it off right there, are you really actually doing a disservice to yourself? No, I mean, I'm using cake. We're using a food analogy here, but people resonate with food. How big is it? About the size of a grape. How big is it? How about the size of an apple, right? Like, we use food because food is our, other than music, is our most universal language. If I were to sit down at Trophy's table tonight to eat, I don't have to know a damn thing on the table, but I can smell it and I can salivate and I can, and the conversation and the cultural component to it, right? Food is naturally done so that we eat together as a group and so that we enjoy just the meal that's in front of us and on all the things that go with it, but specifically about the cake.
But
if you're going to do it once or twice, are you really out of balance?
Well,
if you feel it's out of 52 weeks, you have it too.
I think if you eat it every day, knowing the effects it can have on you,
then ignorance is not bliss.
That's why I'll keep saying that. I don't think ignorance is bliss, because ignorance says you have an idea, you know. Buddha once said, if external happiness is a real thing in the sense of fulfilling you, then whatever it is you love, you should be able to do 24/7 without consequence at all. Going back to cake, I love cake. I love any cake as long as it doesn't have custard in it.
Oh, you are missing out.
I know.
And I can eat cake all day long. Now, I'm saying this brings me happiness. Now, if you could find me a beautiful vanilla coconut cake, I will sit down with my fork and I will put a serious dent into it. I might even eat the whole thing. And I might even eat the whole thing and not feel full or bad. Put another one in front of me, I might take that same fork and start diving into it. But very quickly, what will happen? Very quickly, this thing that I just said contributes to my happiness, and makes me happy, is now all of a sudden going to start causing me pain, because the more I eat it, I'm forcing myself to eat it because it's so good and I don't want anyone else to have it and I don't want it to get thrown out. So I'm going to force myself to eat it, and I'm slowing down because each biteful now is becoming work in it. Oh my God. Get this away from me. What you just said, this is what makes you happy. So to me, balance, we can only practice balance when we have abundance. If you don't have abundance, if you don't have enough to eat, you're going to eat, even if it's cake.
Excellent. Yep. Which comes back to what Trophy was talking about just with Uganda.
Yeah, exactly. If you have abundance, then you have the opportunity to practice balance, knowing that maybe I should put some aside for a rainy day, or if I eat all of this now, it's going to harm me. It's the same thing with the weather thing. If we move away from fossil fuel, we'll put ourselves in a worse position. Doesn't mean we don't need to be conscious of the climate. I still think we're getting misinformation from both sides that doesn't allow us to make sound choices. There's too much fear mongering going on.
And that is where, and propaganda has been used a few times today, but fear mongering, that's the propaganda. That's not art. That's not journalism. That is propaganda.
That's
right?
An agenda. That's an agenda, because I could say the same thing that we could say about Uganda, about Canada. Why is Uganda not self-sufficient with their own energy? Why is Canada not self-sufficient with their own energy?
And we're about 65-ish years older.
So now we're trying to put the burden on these up-and-coming countries who want their piece of the pie, And these other ones are going, well, you have to be environmentally friendly and conscious. Now, having said
And
that,
yet,
countries like Canada and the US do contribute greatly to the carbon's emission. That's why I'm saying we're not getting a cutting of those emissions. We're not getting the full information on both sides. Sorry, Randy.
and then no, it's okay. And then we have countries in the mix who are just fucking fed up and are proving their own agenda. But I'm going to use this just to support the opposite side of this analogy. You want to trade in US dollars, and everybody wants to trade in US dollars because everybody wants to do this. And then Russia comes along and says, fuck you can't pay me in rupees. You can't have it.
Right.
Well, people should understand why we trade in US dollars.
Well,
right?
Yes, we should.
Now, that's another show, because most people don't know why. The United States, the US dollar is the global currency. Is what's the word? No, there's an actual term. It just went out of my head. They're the world reserve currency. You want to trade on anywhere on this planet, you have to have US dollars. Why? Because the United States became the superpower at just before the end of World War II. Right? Before, the world reserve currency was the sterling, the pound. Britain was the top dog of the mountain. Now it's the United States. Now I think you're watching China trying to make a play for that. Although the US dollar, with all the inflation the way it is still performing very strong, because why? America, regardless of all her faults, is still the world's biggest economy that everyone deals with. That's what I'm saying. There's a lot of history that people don't know, and there's a lot of misinformation that both sides are not are guilty of. Because I mean, I look at what's going on in the Netherlands, what they're trying to do with the farmers, and they're trying to put in these sometimes maybe beyond ridiculous policies, all in favor of trying to address climate change, and yet it's having a harsh effect on their economy, on the farmers. And the Netherlands, believe it or not, is one of the agricultural drivers of the world. A small little country exports so much from an agricultural standpoint. So there's a balance, because to Trophy's point, are you going to really care about the environment if you can't take care of your family? Right. If you can't put food on your table, if you can't ensure a safe home to dwell in, if you can't live in a place where you feel safe and that your family is not going to be harmed, are you going to really care about the environment? Or maybe we need to look at the environment in a different way and understand that these cycles that we're going through are part of the natural cycles, and that we need to look and go, what impact are we having, as opposed to the fear mongering, oh, the world's going to end in 12 years because climate change and this last storm. I watched CNN in this disgrace attempt to try to make this about climate change. And here's a fact. Hurricanes 100 years ago were way stronger and more frequent than they are today. And we weren't pumping out the emissions that we were doing 100, 150 years ago like we are today.
Technology has done some of the work for us in the sense that use earthquakes, right? 100 years ago, we were not able to monitor earthquakes the way we are now. We can see fault lines in progress before the ground even starts to rumble, and we can send out warning calls before it even starts to split, right? Saskatchewan is a landlocked. Saskatoon is pretty close to central all the way around. Pretty close. Not totally, but we'll use it as it's close enough. We at the university here can actually measure earthquakes felt in Saskatchewan, thanks to other areas. I mean, they register at like 0.07 or 1.2, right? Like, these are ground tremors that you wouldn't notice in a normal circumstance, but we can measure those here. And we know what's happening around the world because we have seismic measuring system in place globally. Technology has brought us that information, which is allowed, but yet people still continue to live in spaces that don't necessarily deem weather safe. Now we're back to, is that environmental? Do we have a choice? Is there a reason? Why do we live where we live? How we live?
Technology and governed with a mindset that says we value life. because I don't want to make it sound like technology is the answer for anything. Remember,
No.
fire at one time was technology.
Yeah.
Right.
And it still is today.
It still is today. I look at going back to a point, back in our corporate days when personal computers came out and we're going to work less hours and we're going to be a paperless society in 20 years. That was a lie. So technology.
Let's support that with a debit card and a credit card. You
So
still have bank tellers.
Yeah, technology is a player in that, but it's not. Technology is only as good as the people using them and the people creating them. Once again, if you basic economics, follow the money. What incentivizes people to make money is going to determine what we do. Right? Yep. And there are people out there coming up with great ideas that will benefit us. But if we can't make it marketable and affordable and profitable, a lot of times those ideas don't get implemented. So it's not just technology. For me, it has to come down to a mindset. One of the reasons, going back to what's going on in the States, this welfare state, it's not just a welfare state, it's a welfare mindset that supports that. And if you don't change the mindset, you'll never change that system. Right? So we need to get to a place where, what do we really value? If we're worried about rising tides, then don't be building homes down by the lakefront or the seashore, knowing that that's going to happen. Or then don't build it and then, well, I want you to bail me out because no, you made a stupid choice. A lot of this comes down to individual responsibility.
Hey, if a rising tide raises all ships, then maybe we should start building ships.
Maybe. And
maybe we just need to do it different.
But you have to look at history. We have adopted all the time. We will continue to do so. And technology and innovation and economy leads the way. This is why for countries like Uganda, the healthier they are from an economic standpoint, where they're controlling their resources within the global network, within the international network, any country will strive and do well. But when you don't have control over your own natural resources, you will never prosper and do well. It'd be like me coming into your home, Trophy, and go, yeah, this is your home. But I control when you go to the bathroom. I control when you eat. I control the food in your fridge. How could you ever prosper under a system like that? You cannot.
Anyway, so on that note, yes, is exactly where I was going. On that note,
before we wrap up, I was going to say, because we talk a lot, and maybe we'll have Trophy back on another time. But is there anything you wanted to say or talk about before we wrap it up? Because we always tend to take long on our wrap ups anyway.
No, I like the listening, but I think for me it's the times we are witnessing. You see, just as you said, the dollar was the reserve currency. You're looking at China having risen really fast, in a very fast pace in terms of the change of what they're able to do.
Yeah.
You're seeing, new powers jostling for space and control, but also the idea of what the nation state is supposed to be. I don't know if that's put to question, but to me, I'm thinking about that. What is the goal of our unities in these arrangements of states or whatever? Because there's somehow, somewhere, certain people that are just obsessed with, oh, my country has to be superior, whatever that means. And I guess it's to protect the interests of those places. But now those warring interests are what is going to lead to war. And then there are those who will argue that, oh, it's the weapon sellers that also would love for war to happen, or...
Oh, yeah, they benefit from it for sure.
Right.
But they're not the ones driving the wars.
But, this is the times that we're living in. Also, for me, it's to witness what the conversation with Africa is going to be. There's a rising population. It's a very young population. I think if I'm not mistaken, about 3 years ago, Uganda had the youngest population on average.
Right.
And so this is an interesting time for that whole generation in what they are going to contribute, because even looking at the future, the working population, if I may use that word.
I'm totally just going to stop you for a second, Trophy. I want to interrupt because I want to substantiate your number and population thing. This is insane. I had to look this up. In 21, about 45% of Uganda's total population was 0 to 14, 52%, 15 to 64, the remaining 2% 65 and older. That kaboom blows my mind.
And that's a common thing in a lot of countries. Africa, once again, we're not getting the full story out of Africa, what's really going on. Africa, she's coming back in a cycle where her prominence is going to start rising again. She's been through it before. That's what I'm saying. The more you understand history, the more you understand. Here's a simple way to answer this question, Trophy. Those in power always take advantage of those that are not. That it's as simple as that. Those who are in power always want to maintain power.
Of course, yeah.
And then those who are in power will battle with those that are in power because they want more power. And that sometimes open doors for other people. But that's just a human thing. That's a human thing. There's always facets of our humanity that want power and control because they think they know how others should live, or their ideology of life, of how life should be, is superior to everyone else. That's just been a common theme, whether it's in Africa, whether it's in the Middle East, in Asia. It doesn't matter ethnicity at all. It's a human trait. And people will only do things when the right incentive is there for them. So Africa now is in a position. This is one of the reasons China ran to Africa 20 years ago. They saw the potential. Right? Now, China is an interesting study because they're a communist country that uses capitalism as their engine to do things. Right? So from a political, sociological standpoint, they're communists. Right? But their soul is capitalism because look how they practice. And they have probably the second largest economy. They are now the world manufacturer for the world. Everything that's pick out 10 labels, 7 of them will say made in China, right? So I don't think that's the problem. I think that's always been the case because as much as America have done some nasty things, America has also done a lot of good things. She's brought a sense of order to the world and how we trade and how we conduct ourselves, right? The central bank system is not a bad idea. It's just the practice of these things, right? Because before you had states, everyone had their own money. So I couldn't go to New York and use my money because my money was different. So it caused a lot of strife, which causes a lot of more conflict. So to me, we get bogged down with sometimes the practice of these systems are not perfect or not good. And we think the whole system is bad. No, it's not. Maybe sometimes it's the practice of these people who are in power. And what's their number one goal and job? To maintain their power or to grow their power.
100%.
Yeah, so it's not an easy thing. And the fact that we do live together, but I think we need to encourage these young ones like yourself to look at these systems and go, is it the system that's the problem or the practices within the system that's the problem? And how do we fix it? Because us old dinosaurs still like reading books. And maybe we need to get past reading books because we need to stop burning down trees or cutting down trees. But then again, maybe we don't. I don't know, because a lot of companies that cut down these trees also replant trees. They don't tell you these things. So which is it? I'll go back to the fact that do we really all have sufficient intel on both sides of the argument?
And there's your question for the week, ladies and gentlemen.
Mm-hmm.
There is your question
Randall?
for the week. There is your question for the week, ladies
What's
and
the
gentlemen.
question? Repeat the question.
Repeat the question. Do
Yeah.
we have intel from both sides of every story?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And on that note, Rawle's going to write that down. Trophy, it has been a blessing to have you with us. Thank you for your input and being a part of this with us today.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for all of you. Thank you for this space. Thank you for the arrangement. Thank you for the conversation. I think it's always a blessing to have a space where we can have conversations from different viewpoints coming together. And I think that's something that I'll put publicly and say, we want to create a long-term goal and vision for us is what we call the Ubuntu centers of intercultural exchange, and intercultural also going further to be sports is its own culture, and this is its own culture, and how they can be some sort of interconnectedness in terms of solutions specifically for Africa, but giving Africa access to the world by inviting different minds to come in and share knowledge on how different problems have been solved.
Mm-hmm.
Also from places that are not traditionally sources of particular knowledge. So I'm curious about how someone from Nicaragua will influence farming in a place like Uganda, and comparing that with the mass farming that goes on in Netherlands. And so what is the most suitable space for, but it's through conversations like this. And then from those conversations are projects that come out of those conversations that are exploring different ways of doing things. So alternative thoughts and alternative perspectives, alternative ways of coming up with a new space that works well for Africa, and then Africa can give its value to the world. Because one thing I know that we have, that when I came here, I said, okay, money can't buy, is community and community connection. And not in the sense of you're obliged to be part of the community, but the idea that how can we benefit from the insurance of community, if I may put it that way, mitigating risk, shared risk in that sense. So the shared risk is coming from what are you willing to give so that we can have something better for all of us. So I'm grateful for this. Yeah.
And I think to add to that, Trophy, I think one of the things we have to remember, regardless of what side of the aisle of the argument you fall into, I think sometimes we forget both sides consist of humans.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Yes.
I really don't know what's going on in the Netherlands, and I don't know if what the government is doing is right. I haven't spent a lot of time really looking into it. All I know is that there's farmers out there who don't agree with the policies because it's affecting their lives and their families. And the ones that are implementing these policies think they're doing the right things. Maybe they are, maybe they're, I don't know, but they're human as well. And I think we forget that. We get so caught up in the minutiae of these conversations and these situations that we forget we're dealing with other human beings. That's why I said in one of my last shows, it's with each other that we get to clash heads and to celebrate together.
Yes. Yeah.
We are
with
one
each
in
other.
7 billion, and we are one of 7 billion.
Yes. And at the end of the day, we kind of forget that. At the end of the day, I'm not Republican or Democrat or liberal or conservative. I'm not black. I'm not white. I'm not male. I'm not female. I'm human. Now, all those other things there make up my humanity, but I'm human. And I'm part of a humanity that consists of other human beings. And I think sometimes when we go in, how can you find peace when you show up at the bargaining table, the peace table, with contempt in your heart? How can you find peace when you show up with contempt? How can you find solutions when you really don't want solutions? You just want to control. So I think we need to step back and go, what are we saying? And we need to step back and go, maybe listen to the younger voices in a different way.
And we talked about this whole ageism kind of concept early on in our shows, about how there's like the thought and the feel of throwing the baby, the bathwater out and building a whole new freaking table to eat at, rather than, and I was a little bit on that side, but I mean, through good conversation in this lovely space that we have, it wasn't so much about throwing out all the water, the baby, and building a brand new table. It was maybe the table's rectangular and we should make it round, and maybe it needs an extra chair or two, or maybe there's too many chairs at the table and we need to figure out what fits, but not getting rid of absolutely everything, but incorporating. We learned, we made it this far as civilizations across our 7 billion friends that we can say are in this world with us. We need to continue some of that. And I need to bring some of that forward. There are definitely things that need to change. And the bathwater is maybe in the statement, I think we ended it, was the bathwater's cold and the baby needs to be warmed up.
Let's change the bathwater and keep the damn baby.
The baby just wants to be clean and cozy, and cold bathwater ain't going to do that for you.
But you make a good point. We act, it's like, man, where we have gotten to, I know things are crazy and topsy-turvy. Even go back and look at life 100 years ago. So 1922, Go back and look. 1922, depending on where you were living.
Was a big deal, big
Because
difference.
the roaring 20s were really great, depending on where you were living. If you were white and rich, you were having a great life.
And in North America, because
In
you were
North
still
America,
rebuilding
but
if you were
no,
in Europe.
in the Western world. But
Yes.
many blacks were doing well as well. And then there were people that weren't doing well. And then there were people in other countries who weren't doing well. All I'm saying is, if you look at history, we keep moving forward and progressing. We act like, oh my God, today is the worst, and this is the worst our human. No, not at all.
No.
We're actually nicer and gentler to each other than we ever have been, even with all the craziness going on. Now, I used to say that, but I think over the last 5 to 10 years, that has changed. And this is what we're feeling. That's why this discomfort. So, for Randall's point, we need to remember we know how to come together. Not always going to do it right. It's not always going to be pretty. And there's no such thing as perfect. But it's only through listening, through having meaningful conversation, even spirited conversations like we have, where you stand a chance to learn and grow. And just like I always tell the old bulls like myself, we need to listen to the young ones and really understand what it is they're trying to say. The young ones also need to understand. Plus, sometimes the old bulls, they have some wisdom. More importantly,
true,
that maybe just because you can do it doesn't mean you should do it. I'm pretty sure some older person back when I was a young one told me that, and I just kind of looked at him and go, "Oh, you're crazy. You're crazy. You don't know what you're talking about."
Yeah.
But then again, that's our humanity. Because I'm at a stage of my life now. This is your time. I keep saying that to you guys. This is your time. My job now is I can just offer some guidance. I can't do any heavy lifting anymore. I'm too old. My back, I just can't move like
I don't even.
But you know what I mean. Anyway, man, I just think that's why I want to have you on, and I hope you'll come back. We'd love to have you come back, and maybe next time we'll let you talk more, because I'm not gonna blame Randall. I talk a lot, but
no, that's
this is a really great conversation. I'm gonna put this one up right away. So once it transforms, I'll probably put it up tomorrow. But ultimately, this is a space where we want to encourage conversation. We want to hear what people have to think. We don't know all the answers. No one has all the answers. All I know is that we're human.
And we are one in and one of 7 billion. And
it's only together we get to celebrate and clash together. Right? I'm not every day looking to go clash with a lion or celebrate with a lion, but I accept that they're part of this conversation. But because we're the top of the food chain, it's humans, and we need to now step back and do a sanity check like we used to do back in my corporate days and go, where are we now? This governance that we have, is it really working for us? Is it serving? And whatever solutions we come up with, we need to not think necessarily about solution. What's the incentive? Because think about yourself. What makes you do anything? There's an incentive attached to it. This is why you do it.
I'm going to stop you there, Rawle. That was a great ending point. Ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon, good evening, good night, and good morning. I am Randall. This is episode 9, here with Rawle and our esteemed guest, Trophy. This was Where's the Balance? Because what, Rawle?
It's not a debate, but it's a conversation. And we love you. Be gentle with yourself.
Yes.
Peace.
Peace.